Welcome to another episode of The Man Who Woke Up the Buddha. This one is number 6, entitled Marcus Gets Pulled Every Which Way. By the way, we'll be following Marcus's story for a couple episodes here, but while waiting for Sid to reappear, you can always read a background chapter that I wrote that provides or undermines the underlying esoteric spiritual premise for Sid's Buddha nature and this whole episodic novel. There's a nice button on the page of this post that says Top Secret Esoteric Background. Click there and you'll get to it, and I've recorded that one too. There are also links to get you back to episode 1 if you just landed here and want to start at the beginning, as well as a table of contents and a family tree, which will prove useful as we introduce more and more characters. So, number 6, Marcus Gets Pulled Every Which Way. Before driving home the next morning, Marcus stopped by to see Sid one more time. But as he was leaving, the newly proclaimed Buddha asked him to go out and buy him some incense. You can't burn incense in the hospital, Sid. A small bottle of cognac. You can't drink when you're taking seizure medicine, Sid. A mandala coloring book for Casper. And, while he was at it, to pick up Casper, too. Why Casper? To color in the mandalas, of course. Was he at home? How the hell should I know, Sid answered. I'm here, not there. By the way, Casper is one of Sid and Di's grandchildren. Jake and Carolyn, who I'll mention in a second, are his parents. We'll meet all of Sid's children and grandchildren in subsequent episodes. While performing these chores for Sid, Marcus fielded 3 calls from Di. They all began, "Since you're still in town," and went on to ask him to go, 1, to the bakery to get pastries for her book group, 2, to the wine shop to get wine for her book group, and 3, to Jake and Carolyn's house to get some tincture for her book group. And while he was there, to pick up Casper and take him to the hospital to see Sid. I already did that. Sid told me he had an important job for him. Well, did you get the tincture while you were at Jake's? Di asked, making it clear what her priorities were. No, you hadn't asked me yet. That became the pattern for the rest of the day. A whirlwind of changing plans, unexpected visitors, meals on the fly, grandkids coming and going, and purchases, both over and under the counter, with Sid calling regularly to get updates and make additional requests, or rather, demands. After picking up and eating takeout with Di, Marcus begged off joining her book group. I thought it was all women. Yeah, but you're family, she said. You mean Sid goes? No, are you crazy? What about Zoe? I told you we're reading Lolita. Now that's a good point. Marcus's drive home took a little over 2 hours and involved strong coffee, sweet scones, loud music, cruise control, and thinking. Marcus loved thinking. Thinking, overthinking, brooding, perseverating. He'd keep rolling things around in his head, experimenting with increasingly transcendent perspectives until they crashed into irrefutable evidence to the contrary, breaking up into multiple, depressing conclusions, or landing him in an inexorable existential quagmire. Now he was thinking about Sid. The thought of his dying was about as depressing a conclusion or existential quagmire as you could get. To make it worse, he knew he should call his sister Julia to give her an update. Marcus's sister Julia got 4 phone calls every day. One from her brother, the second from her beloved ex-husband, Michael, who lived with his new husband, Philip. The third was from John. No H, no Uthan, he insisted. John, Jon. The guy she shoulda, woulda, coulda married, except they'd always been ships passing in the night, usually with other people on board. Fortunately, there was Treat, the 4th caller, who'd appeared out of nowhere in a pack of several hundred bike riders on a fundraiser the year before. Treat knew about all the other 3. The others didn't know about Treat. Julie was small, wiry, and intense. When talking, she gesticulated faster than someone doing card tricks on crystal meth. She flirted like a teenager looking for a prom date. With anyone. Male, female, young, old, undecided. She wasn't manipulative, although more than one guy she met at a bar would argue otherwise. But if you couldn't think as fast, bike as hard, or have sex with as much abandon as she did, she quickly lost interest. If you looked at her objectively, which Marcus had the luxury of doing, being her brother and all, she wasn't particularly beautiful. There were little things, two front teeth fighting for space, a nose that could cast quite a large shadow, jet gleaming black hair that now featured an in-your-face for a 60-year-old streak of jade, those breasts which turned out not to be quite as big as they seemed at first. Regardless, she was just, as one of her boyfriends had told her early on, that kind of girl. When little kids in strollers or toddling passed Julie on the sidewalk, pushed or pulled along by their parents, they'd crane their necks to watch her until she disappeared from sight, clearly hoping she'd be their mother next time around. This time around, she wasn't anybody's. At one point, Julia had assigned different ringtones to her 4 daily callers, but she decided that was cheating. She wouldn't even look at her caller ID. "So how is he?" she said before even hearing Marcus's voice, equally reluctant to ask the question and hear the answer. "Well, for starters, he's enlightened." "Yeah, I bet," Julia laughed sardonically. Their calls often began with a barely perceptible wariness, Julia prepared to ward off any attempt of Marcus to act like a big brother, Marcus wondering if he could say anything she wouldn't object to one way or the other. Even though Julia had little patience for Sid, she'd been patient enough when she thought he might be someone worth being patient for, he was still family. "Well, at least he was enlightened way back when, I guess," Marcus said. "Or maybe he is now. Doesn't matter, he's the Buddha." "At least he's not playing the Christ card," she said with a bite. "Oh, Julia, come on, he's dying." There was a long pause, which Marcus assumed meant she was processing the sad fact. Actually, she was trying to get the embarrassing image out of her head of her trying to prove how grown up she was by walking uninvited into his dorm room on her 16th birthday, determined to seduce him. When she was undeterred by his insistence that it would be a felony, he was saved by the bell and said he had a biology lab which could, he said, go on for hours, if not days. So she only caught the end of what Marcus was saying. Really had the nurse going there for a second. Me too. "Come on, Marcus. It's just another one of his shticks to be the center of attention. And you know it. They got him pumped up on all those drugs, and you're worried about whether he's behaving out of character? He's always behaving out of character. How many times are you going to..." He cut her off. I know. I just wanted to get you caught up. I love you." "Ditto," she said, hanging up. She meant it. Brotherly love. But she was annoyed, and she couldn't really figure out why, or didn't want to admit it to herself. Next week, Marcus gets home in time to have a nightcap with his wife Layla, who, in some ways, understands Sid better than anyone. Thanks for listening to The Man Who Woke Up the Buddha. I hope you'll share it with others who enjoy the Buddha's irreverent relationship with spirituality and everyday life. And remember, if you want to know more about the esoteric spiritual premise for Sid's Buddha nature, go to the post online or in the Substack app and click the button Top Secret Esoteric Background.